Welcome to the Let Me Be Free podcast. My name is Jackie.
And my name is Alwynn.
We're two sisters from Ireland living in Australia, navigating our healing journeys together. And this is our podcast, Let Me Be Free.
Do you ever wonder how people do it? How parents parent? How people seem to be loving motherhood or fatherhood or life, and you just feel like a basket case, that nothing goes right, that you're one breakdown after one meltdown, and all you feel is just frustration. Today in our episode, I'm going to take an excerpt from a comment that was in the group a while ago. And in that comment, essentially just talking about how she struggles so much in parenting, how she just doesn't understand why she struggles so much. So let's dive in. I'm going to read the comment and we're going to go from there.
Parenthood hit me like a ton of bricks. It drives me crazy. No matter what I do, I'm exasperated. I'm overwhelmed. I'm terrified. I'm losing my mind, racing in my mind, trying to stay afloat. Meanwhile, Sarah down the road is plaiting her toddler's hair and pregnant with her fourth baby because she wants a football team and has never been so happy as she is now. What am I going to do? I'm not going to say, "Oh really, Sarah, I just had yet another mental breakdown myself and I can literally barely cope most days." So I just say, "Oh, I love her hair. When are you due?" I overshare from time to time, not even by choice, it just comes out. And then I get that look. It's not judgment, it's just vacant. Like the person has no fucking idea what on earth I'm talking about.
I remember being there. I remember being at that stage where I was like, why the fuck am I struggling so much? What is wrong with me? There just must be something wrong with me. And if someone had many kids and they were dealing and coping and loving life, it just made me angry for the exact same reason. But I also want to start it off with, something I experienced yesterday when I was at the playground. I had gone to the playground with my kids and I'd chosen to go to an indoor playground that was fenced off because I was about to blow my lid. I needed space, I needed to get away from them, and I needed to do it in a safe way. And so I went to the playground, and as long as I knew where they were, I was like, okay, I'm going walking around the playground. I'm going to find a space where I can sit down and breathe and journal or meditate before I lose my crap. And I looked over and I saw this dad, and he was there with his 4 kids, and he was jumping the monkey bars, and he was just so you look at these parents and they're playing and they seem like they haven't got a care in the world and they're joyful and they're happy and their kids are happy. And I'm here running away from my kids trying to breathe. And it really just made me feel that way in that moment where it was like, what is wrong with me? I should be X, Y, or Z. I should be, more present or more capable or more able. But because I've done this work for so long, I kind of paused and I zoomed out a bit. What is it exactly that I'm looking at? When I really looked at them and I looked at them playing on this playground, I recognized that, yes, this dad was playing. He was really trying to be fun and just, I guess, showing up with that vibrancy and that happiness and joy that kids really love and that we look at as, oh, wow, they're a great parent. But what I really recognized and what I noticed within myself was that's not necessarily true, because what I have realized and what I've recognized myself from my own journey is that I used to be that parent, the one that was the fun one at the party, the one that was an overachiever, the one that was, as Ray said, Sarah down the road. When I began my healing journey, and even before I had kids, even when I was with kids, I was always the fun one. I was always the bubbly one, the most adventurous, the one who had her shit together. And I remember feeling that way, that it was all just a farce. It was all crap. And I recognize now that as I went through my journey, I recognize that there was times where I was there and I was, showing up as this parent who had all of her shit together. But really, in reality, behind closed doors, I was struggling. But not only struggling, I was not even aware that I was struggling. I was just numb. I was disconnected. And so when I saw that dad at the playground and I saw these other parents at the playground and I had myself, judged myself in comparison to them, I was able to zoom out and be like, you know what? I think that my kids are so much more luckier and better off because they're not getting that mom who shows up in front of other people or who has them really neat and tidy and their ducks in a row. They're getting a mom who shows up with presence and consistency, even if that presence and consistency is small amounts. It is better than what most kids get. When we look at Sarah down the road, who has a football team and who's doing everything and managing everything, we are not necessarily looking at it from the child's perspective of how much presence are they getting with that parent, how much connection, how safe do they feel, how capable are they of sharing what they're feeling within their own hearts, their pain, their sadness. Because in many ways, we look at kids that are, good kids, in inverted commas, and we think, oh, well, that mom has got her shit together. Or the mother is, presented really well and the kids listen to her and life just seems rosy and dandy. But in truth, we're just looking at the way the society has created this dynamic of, your kids need to be good and behaved and you need to look like you've got your shit together in order to fool the world that you're really not struggling, there's nothing wrong. And the thing is some people don't realize that they're struggling. I never realized that I was struggling. But I can tell you now that when I look at who I am and even that person that I became where I was really aggressive, I was really struggling. I was literally in a hole going, why the fuck am I the only one that struggles this much? Why is this so hard all of the time? I'm failing. I'm X, Y, or Z. And I recognize that I still pick that mom, the one that was failing, the one that was falling, over the mom I was previous to that. The one that showed up to the world that looked like she had her shit together. Because the person that I was before I started healing and before I started showing up for my kids in a more deeper way was absolutely disconnected. I had no connection to my kids because I had no connection to myself. I had, this persona of having it all together and having my ducks in a row and this busyness and this overachieving. But to be truly honest, my children did not have any connection to me. I might as well have been a stone because I was so traumatized and deep within my own trauma that I couldn't allow them into my space, into my heart. I couldn't allow them to have big feelings or I couldn't allow them to feel anything because then I would feel what they would feel. And so there are us parents who are dealing and healing and trying to parent consciously where we are creating a space for our kids to show up with their emotions, with their feelings, for us to show up with presence. And the thing is in that time when I was really struggling, there was very little presence. There was very little time that I was on top of things. But again, I still prefer my kids to have that mom who was struggling and fighting and trying to be better than the fake mom who to the rest of the world seems like she's got her shit together. But really when it comes down to it, she's not capable of holding space for me, of being there for me on that deeper level. And so when I see people now and they have all of their crap together, and if they can't converse with me on a deeper level, that's because they don't want to see that pain mirrored within themselves. They are saying to me, I am dealing with my shit by keeping it all locked in a tight container, and you talking about your crap, your sadness, your pain, your struggle is only making me uncomfortable. Because it is stirring something within me that I am not willing to look at. I'm not willing to go there. I need to keep my shit together. And so stay away from me with all your troubles and all your pain and all your suffering. And unfortunately, that's what we have in our society. We have so many people that do not want to talk about how much they're suffering or whether they are suffering or even acknowledge to themselves that they are suffering or that their life is devoid of connection, love. It's all about superficial, oh, this is how I look on Instagram. This is how I look on Facebook. But with this deep, hollow hole that's never filled, this deep pain within them. And I don't believe you have to have deep trauma to have that deep, hollow pain and that deep well. Every single person in this world has some level of trauma. Even if that's just that they weren't heard or listened to as a child, there is still trauma there. And so everyone, I don't care if they look like they have everything together. My husband will say that to me sometimes. He'll be like, no, but that person, they definitely have it together. And even that person, I'm like, no, they don't have it all together. They also have wounds. They also have pain. So if there's a person that I meet, these moms at the play group, and they only want to stay at surface level, talking about holidays away and talking about everything on that surface, it's because that they do not want to and cannot go to the places that we parents are going. And that's not a reflection on them. It just means that they're not capable, ready, or able to meet their demons, to meet that pain and sadness within. And so us being there, talking about so openly or pain and or suffering only highlights that within themselves, and they will run a mile. They'll turn around and hightail it out of there because you're essentially bringing up everything that they feel deep within themselves. And I'm going to look at it from another side. We got to look at, right, these parents, these kids, these parents who have had great childhoods with regards, they might have had an incredible mom that did show up for them and an incredible dad who did show up for them, and their emotional needs were met and their physical needs were met, and their parenting, they find it easy and they're able to be conscious. And come here, that is beautiful and that is amazing for that person. But I'm also going to bring up and highlight a little bit of a different kind of angle to that. So, if you've ever heard of a pendulum, it's like if it swings 90 degrees to the left, it has to swing 90 degrees to the right. And so when you are healing through trauma, if you have trauma and you decide to choose to meet that trauma, deal with it, or if you're forced to deal with it, because many of us have been forced to deal with our trauma through having kids, they've literally ripped open all of our wounds and we're bleeding uncontrollably and we're trying to stop the bleeding. Sorry for that gory analogy, but that's what parenting feels like sometimes, actually all the time, until you get to a point where you've let out some of that pain and sadness. But essentially, when you're healing, you essentially, you're getting into that deep pain and suffering. And so your pendulum swings 90 degrees to the right, say. So you're going deep into your pain, deep into your sadness, deep into your suffering. Everything's hard, everything's painful, everything is torture, right? But what I want you to recognize is when you go 90 degrees to the right, deep into your pain and deep into your suffering, you then also have to swing that pendulum back to center and 90 degrees to the left. So where are you going to then? You're going into the depths of joy, the depths of happiness, the depths of the possibility of vitality and life and living and joy and happiness and all the good stuff. So for each of you who are here in this group or listening to this podcast and you're suffering more than so many other people, they're all just getting on with life. They might be just at 20%, 30%, 40% in their vitality, in their happiness and in their joy, and they're content with that. And that's okay. Everyone has their own journey and everyone has their own path. But if you're here, you aren't happy with just 10%, 20%, 30%, 40%, even 50%. You want more than that. And so if you look at Sarah down the road, and Sarah's had a great upbringing and, she's had a really great childhood. If you look at Sarah and she's had that really great childhood, she is only going to swing her pendulum maybe 20% to the right. And so that pendulum can only swing 20% to the left, Because in most cases, we don't go into the depths of our pain and suffering unless we are forced to, or unless there's a catalyst, unless our children rip open those wounds and we go deep into our suffering. But those of us who go deep into our suffering get to go deep into joy and happiness that others will never experience in this lifetime. And I'm not saying that in an offhanded way. I'm saying that as absolute truth. I remember being at my absolute lowest point. I remember being out the back and I was thinking, I don't think anyone could survive this pain and this suffering. I don't know how I'm surviving this pain and this suffering. But I recognize that with the depths of the pain and the suffering that I am feeling right now, and with the willingness to choose to keep feeling it and keep being here and keep living, that one day the depths of joy and happiness that I will feel will be beyond anyone could ever possibly imagine. Because that pendulum has to swing. And so when we look at people who are happy at their 50% and they're getting by, that's okay. You know, that's okay. It's okay for them. It's great if that's their choice and that's the way they want to live life. That's their path. But for everyone listening to this who feels like they suffer and they struggle so much more than everyone else, you will also feel that joy, happiness, and contentment more than everyone else. And I believe that you will do it and you can do it, because you're not here for no reason. You're not here to just suffer. You're here because you want to feel better, to be free.
Thanks so much for tuning in today, guys. If you haven't done so already, please join our Facebook group, Let Me Be Free, The Wounded Inner Child, and post either anonymously or not what's going on for you in your world. We'd also be delighted if you would share this podcast or the Facebook group with one person who you think would benefit from the information. Be alone, Mahaguf. Have a beautiful day.